Welcome back to the deep dive. We're about to plunge into a fascinating stack of source material you've sent our way, all centered on, well, personal leadership development.
That's right. And our mission for this deep dive, it's really to pull out the most impactful insights from all this material,
Hmm.
offering you a kind of shortcut to understanding what it really takes to become a more effective leader.
Right.
And spoiler alert, it's definitely much more than just the title in your door.
Exactly. We're going to try and uncover some concepts that honestly might just shift your perspective. We'll be exploring the surprising truth about influence, how leadership kind of evolves through different levels,
hmm
why character and attitude are absolutely foundational, and yeah, how problems and change, those things we often dread, actually hold some unexpected opportunities.
Our aim here is to give you the key takeaways from this material, quickly and clearly, arming you with practical knowledge you can actually use. Ready?
Let's dive in. Okay, let's unpack the very first, really foundational idea the source material presents. It cuts right to the chase on what leadership is.
It does. It defines leadership in its simplest form as influence. Full stop. Nothing more, nothing less.
I love that. It's so clear, isn't it? It instantly brings to mind that old proverb: He who thinketh he leadeth, and hath no one following him, is only taking a walk.
Oh, that's a perfect fit. And James C. Georges is quoted in the source reinforcing this, saying, leadership is the ability to obtain followers. It just bypasses titles and roles, goes straight to the core dynamic.
So if you misunderstand leadership and think it's all about getting a position, maybe a title, the source points out two pretty big problems that can arise from that mindset.
Yeah, first you might actually get the position, but find you have no real influence. And so nobody's truly following you. You've got the authority on paper, sure, but not in reality.
And the second problem.
Well, you might never get that specific title or position you think you need, right?
Hmm.
And therefore you feel like you can't be a leader or make a significant impact, even if you have the capacity for influence right where you are.
Which completely flips the script, doesn't it? Influence isn't the result of leadership. According to this material, it's like the beginning of true leadership.
And there's this fascinating layer to it, too. The idea that we don't always recognize the full extent of our influence.
Mm.
The source mentions J.R. Miller's thought about uh, meetings of only a moment which have left impressions for life.
Impressions for life from just a brief interaction. Wow, that's both powerful and honestly a little humbling. It means influence isn't just confined to formal settings.
The
It's
exam,
happening constantly through everyday interaction.
precisely. And that leads us nicely into a really practical framework from the source. The 5 levels of leadership. It suggests that influence isn't just a single static thing. It actually develops and deepens over time.
Okay, let's walk through those first few levels they describe in the material. What's level one?
Level 1 is position. Simple as that. Your influence here comes purely from your title or your role. You have permission to lead because, well, a boss or the organization gave it to you.
Right.
It's the entry point, sure. People follow you because they have to, not necessarily because they want to.
Right. It's kind of borrowed authority, essentially.
Right.
So how do you start moving beyond just the title?
That takes you to level 2,
Mm.
permission. This level is all about relationships. You gain influence because you've actually connected with people, you've built trust, and they give you permission to lead them.
Okay.
The force highlights that simply caring about people and, being willing to learn how to work well with them is really key here.
And it lists specific actions for level two that definitely resonate, like valuing the person, making their success your goal, practicing servant leadership. But one that really stands out to me is caring more about people than rules. Why is that particular action so powerful in building influence at this level?
Good question. It's because it demonstrates that your priority is the individual,
Right.
not just the system or the process. It shows empathy, flexibility. People are just much more likely to follow someone who they believe genuinely cares about them as a person.
Makes sense.
Even if that means, bending a non-essential rule occasionally, than someone who's just rigidly enforcing policy without considering the human element. That's what builds loyalty.
Okay. So once you've built those relationships and that trust at level two, what's the next step in expanding your influence?
That's level 3, production. So here, influence is based on results.
Yeah.
You're not just liked anymore, you're effective, you get things done, and you help your team achieve results.
Ah, okay.
So while levels 1 and 2 build potential and connection, level 3 is really where you start seeing significant impact, productivity increases, morale lifts because people feel like they're part of a winning team, and loyalty deepens because you're actually delivering.
So you could be great at level 2, right? Building all those relationships. But if you don't move to level 3 and actually produce results, you might lose credibility, especially with the high achievers on your team.
Exactly. The source actually cautions against getting stuck at level 2. Highly motivated people, they want to be effective, and if the leader doesn't help facilitate that through production, well, they'll eventually get restless.
And level 4 is people development focusing on growing other leaders, not just getting things done yourself. The source notes that the greatest leaders really excel here.
Yeah, and the key insight this material offers is that you might be on a different level of influence with each individual person in your life. A different level with your boss, maybe another level with a teammate, a different one with your child or your friend. It's not like a one-size-fits-all level for your whole life.
That makes so much sense. It's dynamic, it's person by person. The practical takeaway they suggest is pretty simple. Pick just a couple of people, maybe one professional, one personal, and intentionally work on building influence with them using these levels as a guide.
It provides a really concrete way to put these concepts into practice and actually see the impact.
Okay, shifting gears a bit from building influence with others, the source then dives into a really fundamental skill for leading yourself effectively. Mastering priorities. It highlights the challenge right away. Having too many priorities paralyzes people.
Yeah, it uses that vivid analogy, the lion tamer with the stool, right? The lion tries to focus on all four legs at once, gets overwhelmed, and just freezes.
Too many focal points, no action. Well, like that funny joke they mentioned about the ranch with the ridiculously long name, the Flying Lazy YW Bar J Suzy Q Ranch. They couldn't even brand the cattle effectively because they had too many marks. The punchline is, well,
They had no cattle.
yeah.
Because when everything's a high priority, nothing is a high priority. It's a clever way to show the consequence of trying to do it all.
Though sometimes, like in emergencies, priorities become brutally clear, don't they? The source mentions that Eastern Airlines flight where the crew was so focused on a landing gear light while the plane was actually going down, or the woman on the Titanic grabbing oranges instead of valuables in the final moments.
Those extreme situations, yeah, they're stark reminders of what truly matters when everything else is stripped away. It really underscores that William James quote, "The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook." And that poem about seeking one thing if you hope to achieve anything significant.
So, how does this material help us apply this wisdom to our daily lives? Avoid that paralysis. It offers some practical tools.
First up, the importance urgency matrix. You visualize your tasks in 4 quadrants based on how important and how urgent they are. High importance, high urgency, do it now. High importance, low urgency, you schedule it. Low importance, high urgency, delegate it or streamline it. Low importance, low urgency, try to eliminate or minimize it.
Can you give a quick example of something that falls into that high importance, low urgency category for a leader? Why is scheduling that category so crucial?
Oh, absolutely. Things like strategic planning, developing your key people, or maybe building really important relationships often fall into high importance. But they're not screaming for attention right now. Scheduling them is crucial because if you don't, all the urgent but less important stuff, the daily fires,
Right.
will constantly push them aside. You'll end up spending all your time fighting fires and never actually building for the future.
That makes perfect sense. What other tools does the source offer?
The Pareto principle, maybe better known as the 80-20 rule. This principle seems to pop up everywhere. 20% of your activities generate 80% of your results. 20% of customers generate 80% of sales. And applied to leadership. It suggests 80% of your people time and your development dollars should be focused on the top 20% of your most productive people.
Focusing 80% of your time on the top 20%. Wow, that sounds tough. How does the source suggest identifying those A players, and what's the rationale behind focusing there? Seems counterintuitive almost. Well, the source suggests identifying your A, B, and C players based on, productivity and potential, then ranking your A players. The rationale is really about efficiency and impact. Your top performers are often the ones driving the most results, and they usually have the greatest capacity for growth. So investing disproportionately in them just leverages your time and resources most effectively to improve overall team performance.
Okay.
The source does mention potentially reassigning C players if they aren't a good fit for the role, suggesting a need for alignment between the person and the position. It's not just about neglecting people, but about finding the right fit.
Okay, so identify, rank, focus. And finally, the source offers the 3 R's for evaluating your responsibilities. Yes. What is required? What gives the greatest return? And what is most rewarding? Required are the non-negotiables, things only you can or must do. Greatest return are those tasks you're uniquely good at that make the biggest positive impact. And most rewarding. Those are the things you enjoy so much, you'd probably do them for free. What makes you feel like you were born for this? Evaluating your commitments against these three lenses really helps you decide where your energy should be spent.
That's a powerful filter. So, mastering priorities helps you focus your actions. Next, the source introduces a concept that feels vital for effective leadership in this busy world: the power of margin.
Margin. Richard Swenson defines it here as the space that exists between our load and our limits.
It's basically the opposite of being booked solid from morning till night, isn't it? The source really pushes back against that whole glorification of busyness.
It does, quite strongly. It suggests that leaders need to intentionally create white space in their calendars, which kind of goes against the culture that equates busyness with importance or effectiveness. People running on fumes constantly just aren't as sharp as they could be.
And the benefits outlined are pretty compelling.
Yeah, first, margin provides time for reflection and thinking. That Truett Cathy quote is perfect. Leaders need to be thought leaders before we can be market doers. If you're constantly reacting and moving, you never have the mental space to think strategically or anticipate challenges or just become a better decision maker.
And second, it provides energy renewal. Citing Tony Schwartz, the source notes that strategic renewal, taking breaks, getting enough sleep, having actual downtime, it actually boosts productivity and health in the long run.
Busyness itself isn't the goal, right? Accomplishment is. And margin is pretty essential for the kind of thinking and the energy levels required for really impactful accomplishment.
Okay, let's transition now to something really foundational, something the source emphasizes is absolutely non-negotiable for leadership: character. Good character builds strong trust.
Yeah, the source shares this anecdote about executives listing who they truly trusted, often family and friends, versus who their well-being actually depended on, usually their boss or coworkers. It raises that uncomfortable question. Are you on your team's highly trusted list?
Ouch. That's a direct challenge, isn't it? The banking analogy makes it really clear every interaction, every single decision is either a deposit building trust or a withdrawal eroding it. Consistent good character builds that trust account.
And Andrew Carnegie's famous line, "As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say, I just watch what they do," and Arthur Gordon's that a pint of example equals a gallon of advice, they really hit home here. Actions are the currency of character and trust.
The source also takes on some common myths about trust. Myth number 1, trust is just nice to have.
Oh, absolutely not. It's presented as essential, the absolute bedrock of leadership. If you lose trust, you pretty much lose your ability to lead. Simple as that.
Myth number 2, trust is up to others.
This is key. The source says developing trust is primarily the leader's responsibility. The leader has to be the first one to extend trust and work consciously to earn it. Initiating trust in your people is often what unlocks their commitment and action.
And myth number 3, trust can only grow slowly.
Well, while organic growth definitely takes time, trust can be accelerated. It can be transferred, say, if someone people already trust vouches for you, or it can be earned relatively quickly through significant, unselfish acts that demonstrate your character and your commitment to others.
Authenticity is also presented as a crucial element of character living an open life that acknowledges both successes and failures.
Right. The author shares his own journey from, wanting to only present his best self to realizing the power of sharing his struggles and failures too. Authenticity means bridging that gap between your public persona and your private reality, acknowledging both breakthrough and brokenness.
The source also lists Pope Francis's 15 diseases of leadership as potential character pitfalls, things like spiritual Alzheimer's, which is forgetting you were called to serve, or excessive busyness, emotional hardening, maybe rivalry. It's a pretty sobering list of what to watch out for in ourselves.
And to keep your character grounded, the source suggests asking yourself 3 reflective questions. Consistency. Am I the same person in different situations and with different people? Choices. Do my decisions reflect my stated values and actually benefit others? And credit. Am I quick to give recognition and maybe slow to take it?
Leading ourselves is presented as maybe the most challenging leadership task. That poem, The Mirror in Me, captures it well, facing that inner self and needing the courage to overcome your own limitations, to lead authentically.
It speaks to focusing on Adam II, that inner character and soul, over Adam I, the external striving for success. The sort of inverse logic of Adam II, like giving to receive or surrendering to gain strength. It's a powerful framework for personal integrity.
It definitely echoes the Theo Epstein example mentioned, where focusing on character was learned as essential to building that winning culture with the Cubs, proving it's not just about talent or strategy.
Absolutely. And all these elements influence relationships, results, priorities, margin, character. They build the foundation for what the source calls the ultimate test of a great leader, leading positive change.
Being a positive change agent really shows true leadership mettle, doesn't it? It's, easy to lead people who are already aligned and moving in the right direction. It's much harder when you need to shift course.
And leading change is hard because people typically don't resist change itself. They resist being changed.
Hmm.
That simple cartoon from the source captures it perfectly. Who wants change? Lots of hands go up. Versus who wants to change?
Yeah.
Crickets, basically. We want the outcome without the discomfort of the process.
Why is resistance so ingrained according to this material?
Well, first, change just feels awkward and uncomfortable, like trying to interlace your fingers the opposite way or changing a familiar golf grip. The source says most people are actually more comfortable with their old problems than with new solutions because the old is known, the new is uncertain. Marilyn Ferguson's quote about fearing the place in between, like being between trapezes, really speaks to that fear of uncertainty.
Okay.
Second, change involves loss. Ralph Waldo Emerson's insight applies. For everything you gain, you lose something. Whether you're naturally a saver or a thrower, letting go of familiar ways of thinking or doing things is a real hurdle for most people. And third, people are afraid of being ridiculed. The story of Wilt Chamberlain abandoning the highly effective granny shot free throw because he was afraid it looked silly or sissy. It's a perfect, if maybe surprising example of how fear of judgment can prevent positive change, even when it clearly brings better results.
So the source really emphasizes that change is a process, right? Not a single event. You can't just announce it and expect instant adoption. Leaders have to build in time for people to process.
Definitely. And to navigate this challenging process, the source provides a pretty detailed step-by-step guide called the Plan Ahead Process for Change.
Okay, let's quickly touch on the key steps in this framework. P is predetermine the change that is needed.
Right. This means leaders have to proactively identify the need for change, not just react when things go wrong. Rick Warren's quote, "The greatest enemy of tomorrow's success is yesterday's success," is a strong reminder against getting complacent. Leaders need to champion the need for change first.
L is lay out your lines of communication.
This involves strategic communication planning, like meeting with influential people first to get their buy-in, having those meetings before the meeting, maybe sharing information like it's a secret to create ownership, and just keeping those key conversations going until the objections are genuinely worked through.
A is allow time for acceptance.
Yeah, understanding that people often go through phases, from it won't work to it'll cost too much to eventually, oh, hopefully, I thought it was a good idea all along.
Yeah.
Leaders usually see the future first, so patience is really required while others catch up.
N is navigate the process.
This step is all about clear, simple communication. As the source puts it, academia makes simple complicated. A communicator makes complicated simple. You also need to be prepared to answer the worst first, tackle the biggest fears and downsides head on, and encourage them through the worst first, acknowledging the difficulty while still offering support and hope.
Okay.
This step also highlights expecting problems, because they will happen. Addressing the roots of problems like silos between teams, creating a speak-up environment where comments are welcomed, being a coach, not a king, and maybe informally socializing ideas before a formal rollout, because big ideas often evolve through feedback.
A is always point to the successes.
Yes. You need to constantly reinforce the positive results of the change. The quote, "Change is good. You go first," reminds leaders to just reinforce, validating the changes and, importantly, the people making them happen.
H is highlight the history.
Remind people where they came from before the change. This gives perspective, it shows progress, and it helps avoid what they call leadership Alzheimer's disease, which is basically forgetting the struggles or the situation that made the change necessary in the first place.
E is expectable problems.
Re-emphasize here because problems aren't just obstacles. They're actually opportunities for growth, for learning, for connection. As Einstein apparently said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Leaders need to shift their thinking from, is there an answer, to there must be a good answer. And addressing shared problems effectively, breaking down those silos, fostering open dialogue, all crucial.
A is always show appreciation.
Gratitude. It's vital throughout the difficult process of change. Just acknowledging contributions and effort is key. And finally, D is daily review your progress. Stay on track, monitor how the change is integrating, and just keep the communication flowing until the change is fully embedded in the culture.
That plan ahead framework provides a really solid roadmap for guiding people through the disruption of
It
change.
really does. And underpinning the ability to lead change, master priorities, build trust, and frankly, everything else we've discussed is a leader's attitude. The source calls it the extra plus in leadership.
That Charles Swindoll quote is striking. Attitude, to me, is more important than facts. It suggests leadership has less to do with your position and maybe more with your disposition. A positive attitude really sets a positive tone for the entire environment.
And the source identifies the whatever it takes mindset as probably the single most important element of a successful leader's attitude. It's just total commitment, a refusal to quit or make excuses.
How do you cultivate that kind of relentless attitude, though?
Well, the source offers several practical steps. First, disown helplessness. You have to reject being a victim. Robert E. Quinn is referenced, saying you must believe in your ability to make a difference. It's about recognizing your own agency, like in that San Francisco school experiment where teacher expectations actually influenced student performance.
Right.
Second, pay the price. This involves asking yourself honestly, what do I really want? What's it going to cost me? Am I willing to pay that cost? And when am I going to start? It stresses taking action now. The story of Elisha Gray missing out on the telephone patent by just hours because Alexander Graham Bell acted faster is a pretty stark cautionary tale about the cost of delay. Third, don't whine or complain. Simple, rightus. Nobody enjoys being around a complainer. The source presents gratitude as the antidote, practicing thankfulness intentionally, even for small things, and by reflecting on what you already have.
Sure.
Charlton Heston's perspective, being grateful he got to be Charlton Heston for almost 80 years, is a memorable example of finding gratitude in the big picture. Gratitude, the source notes, pushes out fear and invites in faith.
And fourth, put on a new pair of shoes. What does that mean exactly?
It means choosing to exceed expectations, setting a higher standard for yourself than others might set for you. The author shares his own early experience with this, just deciding to do more than was required.
Okay.
The source then discusses putting this whatever-it-takes attitude into action through a kind of continuous cycle. Test, fail, learn, improve, commit.
Test implies a bias for action, right? You can't wait for the perfect moment. It's more ready, fire, aim, not ready, aim, aim. It requires a willingness to take calculated risks and be prepared for things not to work perfectly the first time. As they say, the job never started takes the longest.
Then fail. This means recognizing that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's actually part of the journey. Trial and error includes error, right? Failure adds depth and perspective color, as they put it, that a perfect linear path, monochromatic, lacks. The source suggests being kind of dispassionate about failures and maybe using a 24-hour rule to process both success and failure, then just move forward.
Learn naturally follows failure. This doesn't require innate talent. It requires attitude, a willingness to analyze what went wrong and what could be done differently next time. The description of overnight success as really being years of just showing up, working, trying, failing, improving, growing, and not quitting, that really grounds the concept.
And the whole value of learning is improvement. As Kuzes and Posner suggest, leadership involves challenging the process, challenging the status quo. Achieving success can surprisingly make it harder to imagine doing things even better, so you have to constantly seek improvement.
Finally, commit. As W.H. Murray said, until committed, there is hesitancy. Consistency is the key here. It compounds effort over time. Successful people consistently do things daily that unsuccessful people might only do occasionally.
And ultimately, the source brings it right back to self-leadership. The price tag of leadership is self-discipline. Leaders have to work on themselves first, improving their own attitude and skills before they can effectively lead others.
That leads perfectly into the next big idea, that your capacity to grow personally directly limits your capacity to lead.
It's a really powerful statement. Your capacity to grow will determine your capacity to lead. Growth is presented as the only real guarantee that tomorrow can actually be better than today. Time just makes you older, not necessarily better. That high school reunion anecdote illustrates that point well. Personal growth fuels hope for the future.
But the source is pretty honest about the cost of this growth. It's a journey, often difficult, and that willingness to pay the price is often what separates those who grow from those who stagnate.
Yeah, the price often comes sooner, it's higher, and it has to be paid more often than you might expect. As Gerald Brooks says, every level of growth calls for a new level of change. It's constant.
Growth requires stretching yourself, doesn't it? Like, the law of the rubber band suggests you need that tension between where you are now and where you could be.
And Eric Hoffer's quote feels particularly timely. In a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. The source advocates for a learn, unlearn, relearn process. Like mastering writing might mean unlearning old bad habits first. You have to be willing to let go of feeling right to find what actually is right.
Growth is framed as the great separator between just being average and striving for excellence.
Right. It contrasts being goal-conscious focused on destinations, achieving specific, maybe seasonal targets, with being growth-conscious focused on the journey itself, continuous lifelong learning. The question shifts from how long will this take to how far can I possibly go?
The secret isn't magic, it's consistency. The secret of a person's success is determined by what he or she does daily. Intentional daily growth is key, making it a priority, proactively seeking opportunities, and aligning it with your mission or passion. Dolly Parton's line, "Find out who you really are and do it on purpose," really captures that alignment beautifully.
And reassessing your growth plan regularly is also recommended. That story of Pablo Casals still practicing cello at 81 because he believed he was making progress just perfectly illustrates the lifelong nature and the intrinsic reward of committed growth.
Another indispensable quality for a leader, according to this material, is vision. The source states pretty clearly that all leaders see more and they see before others.
Yeah, vision is crucial because what you can see often determines what you can be. It's about potential and perspective. Konrad Adenauer's quote, "We all live under the same sky, but we don't all have the same horizon," highlights that difference in perspective really well. Anticipation, seeing what's coming, is a catalyst for inspiration.
And importantly, what you see is often what you get. You frequently have to believe it first to see it become reality, unlike most people who kind of need to see it to believe it. The stories of Walt Disney World and Robert Woodruff with Coke are classic examples of leaders who saw and believed in a future others couldn't yet perceive.
And in today's accelerated world, seeing before others see is more critical than ever. Waiting often means missing the opportunity entirely.
So how does the source suggest we cultivate or maybe increase our vision?
Well, it suggests that things like spending time with people who dream big, reading widely, reflecting deeply, actually writing down your thoughts, and consciously keeping your sights high.
But all that's kind of meaningless if you don't truly own the vision yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. Spot on. You cannot achieve a dream that you do not own. If it's someone else's dream you're just trying to fulfill, it feels like a weight, right? It drains your energy. But if it's your dream, it gives you wings, it fires you up, you feel like you were made for it. And critically, you cannot inspire others to buy into a vision that you yourself don't deeply, truly own.
The source offers a kind of process for seeking vision. Look within, what are you passionate about? Look behind, what have past experiences taught you? Look around, what's happening in your environment and to others. Remembering people buy into the leader first, then the vision. Look beside, what resources are actually available. Look above, what higher purpose or calling might be involved. That's an optional faith perspective. And look ahead, synthesizing all this to see the big picture and anticipate the future.
And all these elements influence growth, vision, attitude, character, priorities, margin, change. They all require a consistent commitment, which brings us right back to self-discipline. The source calls it the price tag of leadership.
The core truth presented is pretty stark. Everything worthwhile is uphill, all the way. There are no accidental achievements. They are all the result of intentional effort.
Self-discipline is the engine that allows you to move uphill. It's the bridge that takes you from having good intentions or, sounding good to actually doing good.
It's what allows you to control your habits instead of being controlled by them. That poem by Dennis P. Kimbrough captures it powerfully. Habit can either put the world at your feet or completely destroy you, depending on whether you master it or let it master you.
Your thinking really dictates your habits. Negative thinking often leads to procrastination and making excuses, while positive thinking fuels responsibility and action. The source reminds us not to expect life to be easy and notes that if you don't take control of yourself, well, someone or something else probably will.
The story of Bobby Jones, mastering the game of golf at 14, but not reaching true greatness until he mastered himself, particularly his temper, at 21. That's a classic illustration of self-mastery being the key to unlocking potential.
Practical tips for developing self-discipline include things like avoiding temptation where possible. Don't buy the cookies if you're on a diet. Avoiding shortcuts and understanding that paying the price is ongoing. Consistency compounds. Again, that line. Successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do occasionally.
And mirroring the point about self-leadership with attitude, The source reiterates that you must be responsible for yourself first. Leaders help themselves and make themselves better before they can effectively help others.
Finally, the source briefly returns to servant leadership, linking back to that idea introduced way back at level 2. True leaders, it says, serve the best interests of others, they add value to them.
It reinforces principles like leadership not being about position, believing in people's potential, and continuously improving yourself so you have more capacity to make others better.
Yeah, Pope Francis's message to deacons about availability and not being a slave to one's own agenda fits right in here, as it does that Mark Cole example of consistently exceeding expectations by staying close to people, checking in, asking how to add value, and taking personal responsibility.
The author's personal prayer at 60, prioritizing qualities like being available, compassionate, content, and generous over more conventional measures of success, like being rich or powerful. That beautifully illustrates the heart of servant leadership values.
The source also touches on leader blind spots, noting that it's often harder for leaders to get truly honest feedback because people are naturally hesitant to challenge authority, making self-awareness even more critical for a leader.
Wow. Okay, that was quite the journey through the core of this material on personal leadership development, starting with that foundational idea that leadership is influence, not position.
And exploring how that influence builds through relationships, results, and developing others across those 5 levels. We looked at the essential skills of mastering priorities to avoid paralysis and creating that healthy margin for thinking and renewal.
We delved into the non-negotiable foundation of character, built on trust, authenticity, and self-awareness, which equips you to face the ultimate test of leadership, guiding others through change, using that detailed plan-ahead process.
And we saw how a positive, whatever-takes attitude, cultivated through that cycle of testing, failing, learning, improving, and committing, is so crucial. How your leadership capacity is directly tied to your commitment to continuous personal growth, that uphill climb.
Fueled by vision, seeing more, and seeing before others, and enabled by the daily price tag of self-discipline, all rooted in a spirit of servant leadership.
It's really clear from this material that the process of developing the leader within you is truly a lifelong journey, isn't it? A continuous ascent.
So as you finish listening, maybe take a moment to think about which one concept, one insight, or maybe one challenge from this deep dive resonated with you the most today. Where does this material suggest you might focus your intentional growth efforts right now?
And given that everything worthwhile is uphill, consider this provocative thought from the source to take with you.
Right.
What small step can you take today to begin or maybe continue your own ascent?